Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Town Board of the Town of Augustine regular meeting for Tuesday, July 12th, 2022. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please remain standing for a moment of silence for George Losey. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. So George worked for the Village of Augustine for 35 years, and he was an active member of Hollow Hose Company number 5 for 64 years. He also served as OFD chief in the late 70s. He was a wonderful member of our community, and he will be sorely missed. Thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman Feldman.
I'm here. I'm
Thank
here.
you. Thank you. Councilperson Manicchio.
Here.
Councilperson Meyer.
Present.
Councilperson Fields Twill.
Here.
And Supervisor Levenberg.
I'm here.
So we have a public hearing tonight in the local law to amend Chapter 73 of the Code, Town Code, Community Choice Aggregation Energy Program.
Okay, so thank you, Clerk Donnelly. We're honored to have you tonight. As you mentioned, we have a public hearing on the local law to enable the town to participate in the Westchester Power opt-out community solar program. We had Sustainable Westchester to talk with us about this program. The current version of the legislation came through Sustainable Westchester, and in its initial iteration, it will allow those who qualify for other assistance programs to participate in community solar and to enjoy reduced costs for their electricity supply. We believe it will eventually be open to others as the program and the supply become more robust. With that, is there anybody here who would like to address the board during this public hearing? Anything to say? I can't see if there are. We have one attendee. If you are interested in speaking about this public hearing, please raise your virtual hand and we will unmute you and allow you to speak and also allow you to be seen. Okay, I think we can safely call to for a motion to close this public hearing as nobody's come to speak. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Awesome.
Number 2, 3, special presentation, 2021 audit by PFK O'Connor Davies. Rob?
We're happy to have Rob Danielle, partner at PKF O'Connor Davies, I think, right, to deliver
Yes.
a presentation on our 2021 audit. Huge shout out to our comptroller Dale Brennan, Deputy Comptroller Liz Nakari, our budget director Victoria Caffarelli, our department heads, and the whole team in finance for all your hard work to make for another smooth and clean audit. So we're looking forward to hearing more from you, Rob. Take it away.
All right, well, thank you. And I do have a PowerPoint, so I guess someone could share that. But again, good evening and thank you for having me present the audit results for the town of Augustine for the fiscal year ended December 31st, 2021. Again, before I begin, I just wanted to thank the supervisor, Dana Levenberg, the finance folks, Dale Brennan, Liz Nakari, and really the entire business office for their assistance throughout the year and especially through the audit process. So if we turn to the agenda, We'll go through a summary overview of our deliverables and the reports and opinions that we have issued. We'll go through your general fund, some budget to actual summary for the current year, some comparisons over 3 years, your fund balance, your revenues, and your expenses. And we do the same for your town outside villages fund, which are essentially the two larger funds of the town. And then we'll close with some other considerations. We do have a slide on your debt service requirements, some long-term debt reporting for your other post-employment benefits, for retirement reporting, and then a summary closing point of how the town did overall from our perspective. So if we turn to the next slide. Again, our field work was completed in April. There's always some follow-up trying to get some legal letters and things like that, the representation letters. We did complete it late in May. Our report is dated June 2nd, 2022. As far as our deliverables that are included in your financial reporting package, there's the independent auditor's report on the basic financial statements. Those are the first 3 pages of the audit report. Those are what we opine on. We have issued what is termed an unmodified opinion. An unmodified opinion is often referred to as a clean opinion. It is the highest level of assurance that an entity can receive. And it basically says that the financial statements present fairly the financial position of the town at a specific point in time as of December 31st, 2021, and in accordance with the accounting standards. We have also submitted our required communications to you folks, those charged with governance. Included in that packet was our management letter. I'm happy to report that we did not identify control deficiencies that we felt were material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. We did have maybe 1 or 2 comments, but nothing that rose to a significant level, and we feel that those comments will strengthen internal controls. We also do audit the Justice Court, and we issue a separate report, and that's also included in your reporting packet. And as far as the town audit goes, what we mean by no uncorrected audit adjustments, we didn't pass on any journal entries. There were a couple of entries that we proposed, and they were recorded by management. Next slide. So I'm just going to spend a little time. This is a high-level look at your general fund. Again, your actual results compared to your budget. You can see there are 4 columns. The first column is what you originally adopted. And you can see from a high level, your total revenues were 5.7 million. Your expenditures were 5.3 million, leaving an excess of 341,000. You do have some transfers to other funds, including the capital projects fund, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And you come down to that net change in fund balance, and that bracketed $24,000. Those represent open purchase orders for which the town did not receive the goods or services by the end of the year, but committed to them by essentially using prior years' budgeted dollars to pay for them. The middle column, during the year, things happen. You amend your budget. You can see from revenues and expenditures, there were no changes. You do see a change in the transfers line. You did amend the budget by roughly $136,000. Mainly about $130,000 was a transfer to the capital projects fund for the community center kitchen project for the town nutrition department. So again, you take your revenue, subtract your expenses and your transfers. Now you come down to a net change of $161,000. The third column is what actually happened, and we'll talk about those actual results in a minute. But again, from a high level, $6.2 million compared to your budget, $5.7 million, representing a favorable variance, if you will, of almost $575,000, roughly about 10% of the overall budget. You also had expenditure savings, as you can see, a little over $5 million compared to your final budget of $5.3 million. A little over $312,000 saving on the expenditure side, roughly about 5.8%. You take your revenue, subtract your expenses, you have an excess of $1.2 million. You factor in your transfers to other funds, and you come down to your net change in fund balance, or revenues that exceeded expenditures by a little over $726,000. So you're able to add that to your opening fund balance of $3.5 million, and you end the year at $4.25 million. But the important thing to note is that third line from the bottom there, the net change in fund balance. Again, you look at your original budget. If everything went according to your plan, you would have anticipated using $24,000 of your own money to balance the budget. You amended that with the transfer of, transferring money to the capital projects fund to do that center kitchen instead of borrowing. So you would have anticipated using $161,000 of your own funds to balance the budget. But when we look at the actual results, you can see not only did you not need to utilize the $161,000, but the general fund was able to generate a surplus, if you will, of $726,000. So from a budget perspective, all the way to the right, you did almost $888,000 better than you anticipated. Next slide. And this is a 3-year look back of your general fund. I just told you you ended the year with the fund balance, and I'm looking at the 2021 column. The total, again, you can see you ended the year with $4.25 million in fund balance. It's broken up into 3 components, if you will. There's a small piece didn't change significantly from 2020 in prepaid expenditures. That just means you paid an insurance bill or a retirement bill early. The cash went out the door. The expense hasn't been recognized. It will be recognized in 22. However, we set that aside and we call that non-spendable. The assigned portion is a little over $7,000. These are open purchase orders. Again, we'll see that these will roll over next year and they will amend your budget, as I told you, for 21. And then your unassigned, you can see your unassigned fund balance went from $3.4 million in 2020 to $4.1 million. So overall, the town was able to add about $726,000 to its fund balance, and that's good news because that can be used for future years. I mean, there's no formula of what you should have in there, but looking at your unassigned fund balance compared to your 22 adopted budget, it's a pretty healthy fund balance and a pretty good position to be in. Next slide.
Just to point out, the school district's allowed to have 4%, right? And we have 71%. Is that right?
Yeah, the towns and villages, there isn't a formula. The schools are only allowed to, they're capped at 4%. But again, towns and villages could do their own capital construction type work and use operating funds, so they're not capped at that 4%. This is just a slide to show how your unassigned fund balance compared to your overall total expenditures. You can see that's been increasing over the 3-year periods. So again, from about 70% in 19 to a little over 80% in 2021. So again, a good position to be in. Next slide. So how did you get there? Again, you can look here. These are your revenues again from a high level with the variances all the way to the right. I said that you had a $575,000 favorable variance overall, about 10%, and it's made up of all these items. I'm just going to focus on 4 of the larger ones. You can see your real property taxes. You see a little shortfall there. There were slower collections in 2021 versus 20. That doesn't mean that the town will not collect it. It just means that it hasn't been paid at this point. We can't recognize it. So we kind of defer it, or we call it unearned. And you will collect that in 22, and that will be taken into income. We're only allowed to pick up receipts that you collect 2 months after year end and say that those are valid, because obviously we saw that you collected them, but anything else is deferred. So that'll be picked up in 22. Your other tax items, that's your interest and penalties on taxes. You can see that those were, of the $745,000, those were the majority of it, about $727,000, and that exceeded the budget by $278,000. And I just wanted to point out that the town did go back, revise, due to the COVID limitations, the budget was looked at before it was accepted. So it was a conservative budget, knowing what happened in 20 and going into 21. So some of these numbers you'll see are a little bit over, but it's representative of other, all municipalities pretty much seeing some of these favorable variances. The next large item is your state aid, and that's where we record your mortgage tax revenues. You can see that the town budgeted, I believe, $461,000 in mortgage tax revenues, and that actually came in at almost $884,000. So as far as mortgage tax revenues, the town exceeded the budget by almost $422,000. And then your federal aid, you did have some federal disaster assistance in 2021 that wasn't present in 2020. So again, overall, your revenues exceeded the adopted budget by 10%. Next slide. I'll briefly touch upon this. I just try to pick out maybe 6 of the larger revenue items and compare them over a 3-year period. Your real property taxes, you can see that you see a little slight pickup in 2020, and it's pretty stable in 21. I can say that the town has remained within the 2% property tax cap since its inception back in June 2011. So for 10 straight years, the town has not had to exceed its property tax cap. So that's a good thing. Your interest and penalties on real property taxes, you can see that even during the pandemic time, this has been trending upwards since 2019 from 523,000 up to 727,000 in the current year, or in 2021. Your intergovernmental services, this represents reimbursements for your clerk services. Again, it did see a drop in 2020. Some of that was pandemic related. However, it is trending up to amounts that the town has seen back in 2018 and 19. Your fines and forfeited bail, you can see that also dropped in 2020 as pretty much the courts were shut down. But it's trending upwards, which is good news, and we expect that to continue in 2022. And again, your mortgage tax, when basically the interest rates were at all-time lows back then, people were refinancing and the housing market was in a boom. So these have continued to rise even during the pandemic. However, we will have to see how this is affected going forward, given that the interest rates have risen tremendously over the past few months. And then all other categories, I just wanted to tie into your overall numbers. So there's really nothing to report there. Next slide. And this is the expense side, again, from a high level. You can see all the way to the right, you had expenditure savings in all categories from your general government support, which include all your administrative costs, the supervisor's office, the attorney, the assessor's office. You can see that there was a savings of 123,000 compared to your final budget. Savings in economic opportunity and development. Again, those are your veteran services and your transportation support services. Culture and recreation, your parks and youth programs also saw a favorable variance. And your employee benefits, which account mainly for your health insurance and the state retirement, also saw a favorable variance. So overall, you had a positive budget variance of almost 313,000, a little over 6% of the entire expenses. And as I mentioned before, when you factor in your revenues and expenses, you had a positive budgetary variance of almost $888,000. Next slide. We did the same on the expense side. We picked out 5 or 6 categories, compared them over a 3-year period. Again, your general government support, you can see that it dropped slightly in 2020 due to COVID. It is trending upwards in 2021. It's up in 2021 because the court and your parking did add 1 employee. You had certain appraisal costs and increased litigation costs in the assessor's office in the current year that wasn't there, was there in 2020, but to a higher extent, a larger extent in 2021. Your transportation support services, again, this is your nutrition department. There was a reorganization in 2021 where the director was employed for part of the year. So savings did occur in the salary lines, and that's why you see a little drop in 2021 compared to the previous years. Your parks and recreation, you can see that it dipped in 2020. Pretty much those activities were shut down due to the pandemic. But as the parks opened, the town did see some significant increases in 2021. And there was extensive work performed at the parks, as well as extended hours where the parks were open for a longer period of time. Your state retirement, you can see that that's been trending upwards, and it's really not up compared to 2020. There is a slight increase in salaries, but the rates didn't go up as much as we anticipated. The retirement system is invested in the market. The market at that point was doing rather well. So the rates were increased maybe 1 or 2%. However, over the past several months, you have seen the market hasn't done so great. So that's something to look at in the upcoming year. Your hospital and medical insurance, again, the town did budget, as many municipalities did, expecting a rate increase, but the increase was very minimal. Most places anticipated anywhere from a 6 to 10% increase, but the rates really went up maybe 1 or 2%. Your transfers, again, the transfers to the debt service fund, these are to cover your outstanding bonds, your outstanding principal and interest. So those are amounts that you generally know from year to year, unless you do refund, and the town did refund the bond, and I'll talk about that in a minute. You did transfer monies to the capital projects fund. Again, most of that was for the nutritional kitchen. And you do fund in the special purpose fund, you have an annual funding to the Dale Cemetery of $100,000, and that has been consistent over the past 3 years. Next slide. We did the same for the town outside villages. Again, 4 columns, your original budget, $3.9 million compared to your expenditures of 3.8. I'm looking at the original budget column. You have excess of revenues over expenditures before you factor in your transfers to other funds. So you do come down to your net change. Again, that bracketed $46,000. And that's, again, represents open POs that carried over from the prior year, and you're using those budget dollars to cover those. The middle column is your final budget. Again, that can be amended during the year, and you can see no changes to revenues and expenditures, but you do see a big increase in the transfers out. The town did amend the budget by $500,000 for the Morningside Drive paving project. So they did transfer $500,000 additionally from when they adopted the budget, when you adopted the budget. So then you come down to your net change. That went from 46,000, add in the 500,000. Now you're at 546,000. When you look at the actual results, again, you did rather well. Your actual revenues, $4.6 million compared to your final budget of a little under $4 million, a favorable variance of $721,000. Your expenditures also had savings to the extent of to the tune of $235,000. You take your revenues, subtract your expenses, and subtract your transfers, and you had revenues that exceeded expenditures by $412,000. And again, you're able to add that to your opening fund balance of $4.8 million. And you end the year at $5.2 million. And again, the third line from a budgetary perspective, even though you did amend the budget to transfer the funds, you were able to generate $412,000. So you had a budgetary surplus as well. Next slide. Again, the town outside villages fund, the fund balance is, you can see at the bottom of the 2021 column, $5.2 million. Some of it is set aside and restricted for cable TV purposes. But the majority of it is what we call unassigned or assigned for TOV purposes, town outside villages purposes. And you can see that's been continually increasing over the past 3 years, where it's at now at 4.9, which is $1 million free and clear. So again, the TOV fund is in a great position at $5.2 million in total fund balance, and you're able to meet future challenges and do continued capital work if you choose to. Next slide. And again, so how did you get there? Again, all the way to the right, you can see your variance. Some of the bigger items are your non-property taxes. That's where you collect your sales tax revenues. You can see, very conservative budget due to the COVID limitations, but you can see that your sales tax came in $570,000 more than the budget. So not unusual. We've seen this in all communities. Will that trend stay? We don't know, but it seems to, we get information from Westchester County and it seems to still be on the increase, even going into 22. Your other big item there is your departmental income, which is your billing, inspection fees, zoning, planning board fees. You can see that exceeded the budget by $63,000. And your state aid, again, which is your mortgage tax revenues that are allocated to the town outside villages fund, that exceeded the budget by $77,000. So again, an overall positive budget variance on the revenue side of a little over 15%. Next slide. Again, just very quickly, 6 items. Some of your major revenues looking over a 3-year period. Again, real property taxes, very slight increases, all well within the 2% property tax cap. As I mentioned before, the town has never exceeded the cap. Your franchise fees, again, beginning to rebound in 2021 into 22, back to the levels of 2019 and 18, roughly about $200,000. Your non-property tax distribution from the county, your sales tax, again, you can see that continues to rise. It's trending upwards even into 21. Again, will this be impacted if we enter into a recession? I don't know that, but as I indicated before, it seems to still be strong through 2 quarters in 22. Your departmental income, your permit fees, again, very unusual. Did see a spike in 2020, even with the pandemic. There were some large projects that were started in 2020 where a lot of permits were issued, but the budget was adjusted in 21 with the potential COVID limitations. And we did see a little drop in those permit fees in 21. So it was a good point to take that into account and adjust the budget for that purpose. Your state aid, your mortgage tax, again, seems to be trending upwards, at least over the past three years. But again, due to the rising interest rates, we'll see if that's impacted in 2022. My guess is that it will be impacted in 22 as some of the housing and refinancing slows down. Next slide. Again, on the expense side, overall savings in every category from your administrative cost all the way down to your employee benefits. And again, overall, $235,000 favorable budget variance, a little over 6%. But again, mostly in all categories. Next slide. Again, we looked at 6 or 7 of the larger expenditures over a 3-year period. Your general government support, again, your administrative costs have been increasing since 2019, dropped a little bit in 2021. There were less legal services overall in 21, and there were less tax certiorari settlements in 2021 compared to 2020. Police been pretty stable over the past 3 years, pretty consistent. Slight increase in 21, and that was due to an increase in the intermunicipal agreement in 21 compared to 20. Building inspections, again, pretty consistent over the 3 years. Your intermunicipal agreement with the village, pretty consistent over the past 3 years. Health insurance, slight drop in 2020. And it pretty much leveled off in 2021, even though, as the town did, as most municipalities thought that the rates were going to go up dramatically, but really they didn't at that point, but we don't know what the future holds. Transfers, again, highway fund, the Morning Drive Road paving project. Generally, that's about $150,000 that was amended to an additional $500,000 in 2021. And then your debt service requirements, and those are to fund principal and interest on your outstanding bond anticipation notes. Next slide. You do operate some other funds very quickly. You do have a highway fund. The highway fund remains strong. It ended the year with revenues that exceeded expenditures by $220,000. So you do have a strong fund balance there as well, $1.4 million, as you can see at the bottom of the page. Again, some of it is assigned, what we call non-spendable, but the unassigned, if you will, is still healthy at $1.34 million. You have a special districts fund, pretty much operating at a break-even point. It actually ended the year with expenditures that exceeded revenues by $31,000. So that fund balance drops slightly, but it's still overall $891,000 fund balance on your special districts fund. And your capital projects, they're included in your reporting packet. They're roughly about 23 active projects. The capital projects fund does have a deficit of $1.3 million, but it is supported by a bond anticipation note of just under $3 million. The town does have short-term, what we call bond anticipation notes that aren't recognized as revenue until they're either paid down or converted to a permanent financing like bonds. So although the projects show deficits, they are supported by these short-term financing mechanisms. As I mentioned before, the town did issue a refunding. They refunded certain bonds in 2021. They did obtain a net present value savings overall by doing the refunding of about $61,000. Next slide. The next slide is just a breakdown of your bonds. And as you can see, you have bonds that date back to 2007. Some come due in 2026, 27. Overall, $3.8 million in bonds outstanding. You can see that the interest rates are pretty favorable, anywhere from 0.5% up to 4.2%, which, will be paid off, within the next couple of years. We are required to report the payments to maturity down below over the next 5 years and then in increments of 5 years. I just wanted to point out, you can see at the bottom to the right, you can see that over the next 5 years or so, your debt service payments or requirements are a little over $500,000 over the next 5 years. We need to factor that into all of the town's budgets, general fund, town outside villages, highway. It represents roughly about 4 or 5% of your overall expenditure, so not excessive in terms of outstanding debt in relation to your overall adopted budgets. Next slide. Some other things I just wanted to bring to your attention. We do have to report what we call other post-employment benefits. This doesn't affect your funds per se, but it's something we're required to report. The town does hire an actuary. That actuary, based on the census data that's provided to the town, all of its employees, date of hire, date of service, things like that, they calculate a net present value based on the labor contracts that are in place. So it is a large number. It's a large number in every community. Yours is the town's liability has pretty much remained consistent over the past 3 years, roughly just under $20 million. Now, there's no funding mechanism in place in New York State to put money aside for this. You do pay for this as what we call pay-as-you-go basis. And when you look in your general fund, the town is funding about $600,000 or so annually on a pay-as-you-go basis to cover that liability. But again, it's something we're required to report, but it's not in your general fund, if you will. Your pension reporting as well, something we're required to report. You're not going to get a bill for this, but what the good news is, you're part of the ERS program, the Employee Retirement System. You can see that in the prior year, this system was funded at 86%. This year, it's almost 100%, 99.9% funded. So as I mentioned before, the system and its investments in the market did rather well. So your liability went from a little over $2.8 million down to $10,000 in 2021. Again, this is the New York State retirement system. They report on a March 31st year end. The market hasn't been doing so great, so I expect that your rates may go up, or the funding surely will not be 99% next year, but that's something to, again, you're not going to get a bill for that, but it's something that we need to report to town's proportionate share of the entire New York State retirement system liability. Next slide. So that's it. I just wanted to have a couple of closing points. And again, the town's overall good financial health can be credited to you folks. Continued leadership of the town board and administration. As I mentioned a couple of times, you have remained within the 2% property tax cap called the tax levy limitation law since it was enacted back in June of 2011. The town does have cost-effective purchasing procedures. You did adjust your budget due to the pandemic, and you do have strategic use of services from the village of Augustine through intermunicipal agreements. Why is all that important? It's going to assist you when you compute your tax levy on an annual basis. You did have a credit rate increase in the prior year. The town's currently at a AA1 bond rating for Moody's. Having that fund balance, as I mentioned, can fund unexpected and unbudgeted contingent expenditures. In the past, there were some revenue shortfalls from the state, so the town was able to utilize some of those funds without cutting any types of programs. Having that fund balance, if you do go out to borrow again, can potentially reduce your borrowings and interest costs, even though interest rates are on the rise. And you do have the available fund balance in cash. You do make the school districts whole. So any taxes, any school district taxes are turned over to the schools, you make them whole, and that becomes a receivable of the town. So you still have to make the school districts whole, even though you might not have collected the school taxes from the residents. So you're able to do that without any type of tax anticipation, no borrowings, or things like that. With the pandemic going on, the town did receive $568,000 in American Rescue Plan Act funding. The town did receive 50% of that money in 2021. That money can be used over the next 4 years. The town is expected to receive the other 50%. I believe they may have received it in 2022. Currently, that money is what we call deferred or unearned. And as the town utilizes it, it'll be taken into income. Again, as I mentioned before, we did issue our communication to you folks, those charged with governance. Again, nothing to report, no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies. And again, just wanted to point out that the business office has excellent financial operations. And then just lastly, there's a new pronouncement that will affect all communities or all municipalities. It's on leases. And that's something that I will sit with the finance folks over the next month or two. And we will discuss and gathering those leases and potentially have to report those next year, December 31st, 2022. So that's pretty much it. I know I spit out a lot of numbers in a short period of time, but if anyone has any questions.
Thanks so much, Rob. And yes, I will open it up to the town board. Anybody has any questions? I just want to say thank you, Rob, to you and your team. And again, thank you to our finance team and the business office and to Victoria. And again, all of our department heads for being so thoughtful about their expenditures and always thinking about the taxpayers first. And also making sure that the services that we deliver are those that we promise. So I'm grateful to everybody who's participated, grateful to the town board for approving a budget that was reasonable and rational and thoughtful, and that we did better in revenues. And we always like to budget conservatively on the expenditure side, and also on the revenue side. I mean, less conservatively on the expenditure side and more conservatively on the revenue side, so that this might be the ending of our years looking where we are seeing fund balance, and that's realized. And of course, the expenditure on larger projects like Morningside Drive is a good use of that fund balance. So we're happy to report that the Morningside Drive project is, I think, almost 100% complete. There's a couple little items that are still being taken care of, mostly in-house, but it looks great. So if you haven't been out there yet, you should go take a ride over there.
Okay.
Are there
I just
questions? Yeah.
No. Sorry. No, I just wanted to thank Rob for putting it together nice and succinctly, to making it easy to understand. I know we have 2 new board members who haven't gone through this 100 times yet. And I thank you for the booklet that I have also. I appreciate that. So, yeah, I also appreciate the department heads for staying within budget, and the finance office for doing all the work that goes into the audit along with everybody else. So thank you. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Anybody else on town board? Questions? Concerns? Kudos? I like to be alliterative. Everybody good? All right. Well, with that, I will say thank you so much to Rob, and we will see you in a year.
All right. Thank you.
Some of us.
Everyone,
Okay.
take care. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
You too. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So next up, we have a departmental report keeping with our finance theme from Dale Brennan, our comptroller, and looking forward to it. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Supervisor Levenberg. Good evening, Town Board. And a big thank you to Rob, who already left, and his team. And of course, a thank you to the board, the Supervisor's Office, but a quadruple thank you to the Finance Office, because they are absolutely on the job, and especially Liz Nakari, who is in attendance this evening. A very personal thank you for keeping us in check. So we have just seen how we ended the year for 2021. And now we are almost halfway through 2022, which is pretty amazing how quickly that goes. When I was looking at the funds overall, they are all acting pretty much the same, which is basically about 90% of revenues have been received, and that's usually given to that revenues are mostly tax revenues, and we spread that out across all the funds. So the 2% tax cap amount is allocated in accordance with each fund's budgeted amount, and that's the percent that gets added to the next year, which we will be starting to do shortly for 2023. So in going with that actuality, they are performing as they should with their other regular line items for revenues, and expenses are also in line at about 43% as of June 30th. A lot of that also is timing. Timing of expenses lags a little bit, and that's why you'll see going into the following year, you have what we call accounts payable. And so those items are items that were designated in the previous year, but not physically paid for cash-wise until the current year. And so as we're going along, that becomes part of that fund balance number you all see. But it's all covered and taken care of. So we are pretty much in line for those items. A few areas that we will have to address as we move forward a little bit into the year are our gas and diesel lines. I am sure, just like every household is also correcting their budget, so to speak, to cover those challenges, the town will have to as well. Heat lines are also a little bit over budget, and we will be sure to take care of those before the end of the year. But not a cause of concern. We, as always, are very diligent in making sure we stay within or below budget on other items. So I think we'll be okay. Plus, we do budget contingency lines, which are very helpful in these types of situations where things arise, that really you can't plan for, but that's what contingency is for. Our sales tax number we've only received one actual first quarter payment, but that amount came in above budget by 1.68% from the prior year. The second quarter projections are projected at about 15% more than the prior year. So we should be well on target for our sales tax. And our mortgage tax first half payment came in June, and that amount has already had an effect of putting us over our budgeted amount for the 2022 year by $47,000. So anything received for the second half, if not used to cover expenses like our unleaded and diesel, will go to fund balance at the end of the year. But overall, in terms of the second half, you're exactly pretty much where I expected you to be, and you should be. And we'll see what happens as we go into our budget talks and cross-correct anything that we see going on as we move into 2023. Any questions?
Thank you so much to our comptroller. Sorry, I whacked my knee into my desk and I thought that was loud, so I muted myself. Thank you very, very much, Comptroller Brennan. We very much appreciate that report, and I'm happy to hear that as we have been working diligently to keep within budgets, that we have done so to the best of our ability, obviously excluding fuel costs. So, and I'm sure that there are a couple of other areas as well, but we do have healthy fund balance in all of our funds, and that gives us that cushion that we need, not only to make sure that the school taxes are covered for both Briarcliff and Augustine schools, but also to make sure that we can cover our fuel costs, and then we may need to change the budget for next year. So with that, I'll just open up to my town board colleagues if anybody has any questions for our comptroller or deputy comptroller. And thank you again for the work you put in every single day.
Yeah, thank you, Dale. I know you work hard, you keep us in line. It's appreciated. And you have a great team. So thank you, Liz. Thank you to the rest of you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Discussion? No? All
In good
right.
hands.
Fantastic. I just want to see one thing really quickly, which is, okay, so I know that I wanted to see if we could maybe do something that I never do, which is if we could just move up a couple of our regular meeting items, and then I'll come back. We have two folks who are on with us this evening, Lynn Farrell and Bill Boyd, who are both going to be appointed to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And I'm hoping that we can just move, if we don't have any issues, if I could have a motion to move up those two agenda items so that we could approve them now while they are on with us, because I believe Lynn may have to go to another meeting.
All right, so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, wonderful. So with that, if we wouldn't mind, Madam Clerk.
Okay, we'll go right down to item C of the board resolutions. Appointment of zoning board of appeals. Resolved that the town board of the town of Ossining appoints Lynn Farrell to fill the unexpired term on the town zoning board of appeals to expire December 31st, 2022. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so we are happy to be welcoming Lynn Farrell to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Lynn has been interested in getting more involved in town government for some time now and has great professional experience in the field of municipal law. So we think that you will be a great addition. And thank you so much for joining us this evening. Maybe can we just we just join, have the two of them come on so we can see them. Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your confidence in me, and I hope I'll do you proud.
Okay, let's all vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Thank you so much. Okay, next up.
Appointment, zoning board of appeals, alternate position. Resolved that the town board of the town of Ossining appoints William Boyd to the alternate position on the town zoning board of appeals for the one-year term expiring July 31st, 2023. Do we have a
Motion?
motion? Liz?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Might have, I can't.
Greg said second.
Okay. So we are also appointing Bill Boyd to the alternate position on the ZBA. Bill is the Vice Commodore of the Ossining Boat and Canoe Club, and his professional background is in property management. So we feel he will be another great addition to the ZBA. So thank you, Bill, for stepping up. Thank you, Lynn, for stepping up. Both of you are going to make a great addition, we believe, to this volunteer board.
Thank you.
Thank you, and my pleasure.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, once again, I thank you. Thanks for joining us this evening. And Lynn, you can feel free to go on to your next meeting. I hope that doesn't last very long.
Oh, not either. Thank you. Have a
Okay,
good evening, everybody.
you too.
Good night.
Good night.
Good
Okay,
night.
so now I'm going to zip back and obviously feel free to stay. To our announcements. Ossining River Jam, our rebranded summer concert and food truck Friday series, continues this Friday, July 15th, with Billy and the Showmen. Billy and the Showmen deliver high impact entertainment, playing the best Motown, funk, and soul. This band has been getting audiences out of their seats or their lawn chairs on their feet for 5 decades. Billy and the Showmen have quite a resume. They were the backup band for the Chiffons from 1973 to 1988. They were 5 years old then, so they're still very young. They toured as the opening act for Jay Black and the Americans, the Four Tops, and Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, playing all of the big venues on the East Coast, including Madison Square Garden, the Omni in Atlanta, Rhode Island Civic Center, Long Island Coliseum, and the Boston Garden. So get ready for an awesome night, everybody. Food trucks start serving at 5 and the music starts at 7 p.m. We will post the food truck lineup on Friday, so get hungry. Huge thanks to Mike and Mary Risco, Eric Garrity of Sing Sing Kill Brewery, Gail Marchica and Johnny G of the Greater Ossining Chamber of Commerce, Jermaine Smith of NU Builds, Brian Sheridan of Hot House Designs, Keith Heilman, our fantastic sound man, and Recreation Superintendent Bill Garrison, and our own very own Town Parks crew for making the park space look and feel great. There's more free summer entertainment with the Summer Acoustic Series at Market Square, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. and this week with the Mike Risco Band. Also on Mondays, jazz at Henry Gordon Dean Park at 6:30 p.m. The next concert is Monday, July 25th with the Mike Clark Organ Trio. On Tuesday nights at 7, there's the Family Summer Entertainment Series. Next week, there will be Lee Louie Acrobat at Henry Gordon Park. Don't forget to grab dinner from a local Ossining restaurant as you spend your summer nights in Ossining's beautiful parks. Bethany Arts Community is holding its annual Studio Artist exhibition, starting with an opening reception on Friday, July 15th from 6 to 8 p.m. and running through August 13th. The gallery hours are Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., Wednesday, 10 a.m. to 7:30 p.m., and Saturday, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Bethany will also be holding Two Truths and a Lie, an interactive storytelling experience by River's Edge Theater Company on Saturday, July 16th at 7 p.m. Tickets are $20 and 10% of the ticket sales goes to the Innocence Project. Reserve your tickets now at River's Edge Theater. That's theatre.com. Next week, July 20th through the 23rd is the St. Augustine's Festival from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. Head over to St. Augustine's grounds on North Highland Avenue for food, rides, games, entertainment, raffles, and more. It's sure to be a fun couple of nights celebrating this Augustine favorite. If you didn't make it to St. Anne's, you better get over to St. Augustine's. And I'm pretty sure they're having fireworks this year. I think we approved that, right? So, and I'm sure we're going to see Councilman Minichio there, and I'm sure we're going to see our clerk there. Am I right? Am I right? Maybe. Are there any other announcements from my board colleagues? Got everything? Okay. Maybe not everything, but look for through the supervisor's update and the website if you want more. There's lots more on there. On my administrative report last week, I participated in a meeting with our planner, Valerie Monastra and Victoria Caffarelli from my office, as well as the village to learn more about the Village of Augustine, to learn more about the prospective Clean Path New York project. I know that we've had some questions about that. Clean Path New York consists of an approximately 175-mile underground underwater transmission line that will transport up to 3,800 megawatts of new in-state solar and wind power, increasing the reliability of the state's transmission system and helping transition New York to a clean energy economy. Just to be clear, some people thought this might have had something to do with energy coming from Canada. That is not the case. They're in the process of developing the siting for the transmission line. It is not a done deal, and it will need to exit and re-enter the Hudson somewhere between Peekskill and Ossining. They have been taking input and they'll continue to evaluate. We've asked the folks from this project to come speak before the town board, but there will also be open houses for the public to attend in Ossining on Tuesday, July 26th from 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. and from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. at the Ossining Public Library. We did share this information with the board and encourage members of the public to attend to learn more as well. We have also learned of an exciting program called Submerse New York, which is a program funded by FEMA with a focus on flood risk awareness through interpretive programming like art and other public events. We learned of this program via New York Water Resources Institute, who inquired if the town might be interested in hosting this free program. It would require participation from the town and relevant stakeholders to brainstorm programming that would be impactful in terms of education on flood risk to the community. It seems like a very interesting and informative program, so we will be letting them know that we're interested in participating and bring back more specific information to the town board very soon. Last night, I had the opportunity to recognize two very special people. Well, one's a little more special to the town than the others, Pete Connolly and Robert DeCiccio, who celebrated 50 years of volunteerism to the Augustine Fire Department, both members of Hollowhose. Congratulations to Pete and Robert on the significant milestone. And I'm going to ask Victoria, do we have the little proxy can share or not? Can you do it? No, that was.
No, sorry, I did not have it.
Okay, sorry about that.
Sorry, we'll post it on Facebook and
Okay.
Instagram.
They'll be posted on Facebook and Instagram. But very importantly, both town and village have named Pete Connolly Day for Saturday, June 16th, and Robert DeCiccio Day, Sunday, June 17th, in both town and village of Boston. So we hope everybody gets out the megaphones.
July 16th. And
July. I meant July. June's happened already. July. Okay, everybody knew that. I just read it wrong. Oh, yeah, okay. In any case, so
Sorry if
yeah,
I wrote it wrong.
please get out the megaphones, plan to drive around and, wish everybody a happy Pete Connolly and Robert DeCiccio Day. And he does not like his nickname, so I'm not going to even say Robert DeCiccio's nickname, even though I know that there's a few of us on here who know it. Okay. So quick reminder that summer office hours have started in the town. All town offices, except for the town clerk, will close at 3:15 p.m. on Fridays through September 2nd. And that is it for my administrative report. Councilman Feldman, was that just to correct me about the June, July thing? Or did you had your, okay. Anything else? Anybody else questions? Or if not, we can move into liaison reports. And are there any liaison reports? Hearing and seeing none, we can now move into public comment on.
Can I make it's not really a liaison report, but it's a report that Councilman Minichio can take back to the Recreation Advisory Board. We issued the purchase order for the fencing at Ryder Park yesterday. So that is now officially in the works. So you can report that back in your liaison report in the other direction.
Thank you very much. That was very nice. Yeah, all the parents and all the sports guys are really looking forward to it. Great safety aspect added to our parks. So looking very forward to that, getting that into fruition. Thank you.
Okay, so then moving right along. Is there any public comment on any of the agenda items on for tonight? If so, please raise your virtual hand and we will recognize you. Seeing none, we can move into our agenda.
Board resolutions. Good.
Thank
Okay, the board resolutions, approval of minutes, regular meeting, June 29th, 2022. Resolved that the town board of the town of Austin hereby approves the June 29th, 2022 minutes of the regular meeting as presented. Do I have motion?
So moved.
Okay. Was there a second? Am I just not hearing this?
Greg said second.
Greg, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Approval of the voucher detail report. Resolved the town board of the town of Austin hereby approves the voucher detail report dated July 12th, 2022 in the amount of $500,093.68. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Contract Wellness and Nutrition WIN Program and Nutrition Services Incentive Program, NSIP contract number PY 2022-2023. Resolved that the town board of the town of Austin authorizes the supervisor to sign an agreement with Westchester County Department of Senior Programs and Services for the purposes of receiving grant funding for the program period April 1st, 2022 through March 31st, 2023 for Wellness and Nutrition WIN program and for program period October 1st, 2021 through September 30th, 2022. We sure those dates? For the Nutrition Services Incentive Program at the aggregate amount not to exceed $45,505, $38,633 for WIN, and $6,872 estimated for NSIP. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So this contract will enable the town to receive grant funding for our senior nutrition program through the county, as per usual, and that is always very much appreciated. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Okay, Contract Auctions International, Inc. Resolved that the town board of the town of Austin authorizes the supervisor to sign an agreement with Auctions International, Inc., East Aurora, New York, 11167, for the sale of the town of Austin surplus government assets by online auction. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So Auctions International is the company that we use for vehicle and equipment auctions. Our contract was up for renewal. That's just in my vocabulary, was renewable. We've been very pleased with them in the past, and we believe that we will continue to be pleased with them in the future. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Retainer agreement, Silverberg and Salatis? Atlantis, thank you. Resolved that the town board of the town of Austining authorizes the supervisor to sign the retainer agreement with Silverberg Salantis LLC for general legal and land use services and in-rim processing for 2022. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We are so pleased that our town council, Christy Adana, has agreed to add a bit more work to her already very large load with the town taking on the in-rem proceedings. I think that they do need to amend Silverberg's Atlantis Adana, and then we'll definitely say yes. Any questions?
That is not going to happen, but I appreciate it.
Questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thanks.
Okay, the next.
And by the way, Holly's calling you tomorrow if she hasn't already. Okay.
The next item is a roll call vote. Resolution, local law number 4 for 2022, authorizing members of all public bodies of the town of Austining to participate in meetings via video conferencing. Whereas part of the 2022 budget, the state enacted Public Officers Law 103-A that allows members of the municipal public bodies to participate in public meetings remotely under the circumstances provided by law. And whereas the Public Officers Law 103-A requires that the town board to adopt a local law authorizing the mechanisms set forth in Public Officers Law number 103-A and to adopt video conferencing regulations. And whereas the town board will be considering video conferencing regulations in its July 19th, 2022 work session. And whereas the town board believes it is a benefit to the community and the town board to authorizing the use of video conferencing under circumstances prescribed in Public Officers Law number 103-A. And whereas the town board opened a duly noticed public hearing on the proposed local law at its meeting Wednesday, June 29th, 2022, and members of the public having the opportunity to attend and be heard, and the public hearing was closed on June 29th, 2022. And whereas said local law has been on the desks of the members of the town boards for at least 7 days, exclusive of Sunday, prior to the adoption of this resolution, and now therefore let it be it resolved that the town board hereby adopts, am I reading the right page? Negative declaration pursuant with the State Environmental Quality Review Act, determining that action does not have the potential of having any significant adverse environmental impacts, as the local law is authorized by state law and will allow town board members to participate remotely in the event of illness and thus protecting of public health. And it is further resolved that the town board, after due diligence, finds that in the furtherance and safety of health and well-being of persons and properties in the town, it is in the best interest of the town to adopt said local law, and the town board hereby adopts local law number 4 of 2022, and be it further resolved, the town clerk is directed to enter said local law into the minutes of this meeting and into the local law books for the town of Austining, to publish said minutes in the newspaper published by the town, if any, and if such newspaper published in the county in which such town may be located, having the circulation in such town, and affidavits of said publication shall be filed with the town clerk, and a file copy is sent to local law to the secretary, will be sent to the Secretary of the State of New York. That's a mouthful.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so this is
Okay, and
a roll call
roll
vote. And I just right before you say that, I just want to say a couple of things. We will be continuing this discussion in future meetings as we develop a policy for allowing video conferencing for town meetings. The local law is just the first step in accordance with the change in state law. We should also learn later this week if the governor will extend the executive order allowing for the fully virtual meetings due to the COVID-19 pandemic emergency order, and with the uptick in cases and the new variant, we anticipate that that will most likely happen. But we want to be ready for the next part of this, which hopefully we'll get to at some point in the near future. So with that, now you can go ahead and do the roll call, Madam Clerk.
Okay, Councilperson Feldman,
Aye.
Councilperson Myers,
Aye.
Councilperson Manicchio,
Aye.
Councilperson Fields Twill,
Aye.
and Supervisor Levenberg.
Aye.
Excellent. Okay, that's that one. Resolved that the town board of the town of Austin hereby accepts the following monthly reports for the month of June 2022. The GE helicopter report, the town clerk report, the tax receiver report, the Dale Cemetery report, the town highway report, and the town building department report. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
And now we're up to visitor recognition.
Is there anybody who has, would like to be recognized by the board on any topic whatsoever? And so you have 4 minutes, just raise your virtual hand and we will unmute you. All right, and hearing and seeing none, and thank you, Mr. Boyd, for staying to the end. Anyway, we appreciate that. I would ask for a motion to adjourn to executive session for advice of counsel on personnel. Have a motion?
So moved. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. We will be back next week, Tuesday, July 19th, with a work session. It will be held via Zoom if the executive order is extended, and if not, the meeting will be held at 16 Croton Avenue. We will see you one way or the other then. Thanks so much. Have a great week. Stay cool. Be careful out there. Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.